Netflix kicked off this year in an interesting way with their January 1st release of Kaleidoscope, starring one of my personal favorites, Mr. Giancarlo himself. Kaleidoscope is your classic heist project following Ray Vernon and his team of criminals as they try to crack into what is supposed to be the world's toughest safe for a pool of $7 billion. While not being an inherently out-of-the-box premise, Kaleidoscope has gone viral for having the unique gimmick of having each episode being able to be watched in any order and still make sense. As like a kaleidoscope, different angles can give different images of the same story. With over 40,000 different ways to watch, the goal was to give viewers a more unique watching experience. I'm not a fun killer or anything, so after consulting my magic number generator, I came up with my own set of episode orders, and I'll walk you down my personal viewing experience along the way. Episode 1, Violet. It's 24 years before the heist begins, making this the chronological start of the show as well. We follow a duo in a heist with a smooth-talking showman named Graham that distracts, and the skilled man doing the dirty work behind the scenes named Ray. The life of crime is seemingly everything to Ray. He is handling out stolen goods as presents, and he even has his daughter running mini psych evaluations to learn how to read people's tendencies. But after recognizing the influence that he's leaving on his daughter, being out of town often and pretty much is molding her into a life of crime, he decides it's time to make an honest living as an auto repair store owner. Until he doesn't. He was almost immediately pulled back in 8 months later. Graham is now in some deep financial trouble, and the only one that can get him out is his talented felon friend, Ray. And what was supposed to be the final heist, the duo was hoping to change out a bunch of real jewels from jewelry at a fancy showing. But you know, them being happy isn't fun for us. So this plan goes almost immediately wrong as well. Complications take place and the fire burns down the whole place, with the person that just so happens to still be in there after the fire being none other than Ray's wife. Graham has a chance to save her, but chooses the jewelry and his freedom instead, leaving Ray to mourn the loss of his wife and be sent to jail within 24 hours. The care of his little daughter Hannah is left in the hands of an unknown friend of his named Ava. Episode 2, Blue. Skipping ahead a bit to the chronological episode 5, we get down to the 5 days leading up to the heist itself and confusion kicks in almost immediately. Ray is going by Leo now and is taking out a plan for a giant heist against a company known as SLS, ran by a man named Roger Silas who looks a lot like Graham. It's almost as if they were the same person. This 7-phase plan involves a plethora of new characters and I don't know who most of them are. We got the dumb brute with the broken hand and his intelligent wife Judy, who even after seeing them for the first time I can tell the relationship is done for. Then you got the electrician dude who has the social skills of a pineapple. And the last two who has no character right now for me other than looking like Huey from The Boys for a second. We also see that the same girl Ava from episode Violet, yet we don't see Hannah here. Well, that's because she is over there working with Roger now, somehow. She's a full-grown adult now trying to get these very powerful people to put their bonds into SLS for safekeeping. And back to Roger himself, he's being blackmailed for over $4 million, and it ends up being from a former employee who he apparently ruined his life. If he didn't ruin his life before, he definitely did now, as he has a hired gun murk the dude. Also, Team Felony further has the odds stacked against them, as they not only had to rework their plan due to their backdoor being patched up, but there seems to be an FBI informant amongst them. I'm not naming any names, but it's gotta be Ava. Episode 3 is Pink, and chronologically the last episode of the series, and the one that made me question the validity of the any episode order model, because this kind of tainted the following episodes for me. It's 6 months after the heist and we get a breakdown of everyone involved from the FBI, criminals and victims alike, so I can finally start to remember some names. They confirmed that the heist has been accomplished, yet they know everyone who was actually involved, so it wasn't scot-free. They also mentioned another heist that took place 4 weeks before the SLS heist, known as the Diamond Way heist, which is possibly connected to the team. The brute, who I finally know is named Bob Goodwin, has been screwed over somehow and is now on a hunt for his ex Judy, who is now all skadoodly with Stan. Bob is all alone and has nearly lost his ability to speak, I'm assuming from the heist, but now he is more determined than ever and is teaming up with Roger, real identity Graham, who is now in jail now? We cut over to Leo and he is very shaky, like he either got extremely hurt during the heist or he attained some sort of disease in his old age, like Parkinson's. But he is still chilling with Ava though, so he's all cool. If you picked Pink first, then you're done for, because quite literally almost everyone that speaks in this episode is getting murked by the end of it. Bob, murked. Ava, murked. The police lady following them all, murked. Leo gets to at least see his granddaughter over the phone as Hannah was pregnant somewhere along the timeline. Oh yeah, then Leo gets murked. There was literally an old lady that was introduced in this very same episode to us. I don't know who she is, her name, or how they know her right now, and even she gets packed up by the end of the episode. Episode 4, Orange. Taking it back to 3 weeks before the heist, the chronological episode 4, conveniently, we follow the backstory of the former police addict turned sober policeman in Nazan Abbasi. We see she sort of has some connection to Ava and a very deep obsession with the Diamond Way case. Sort of like her addiction never ended, but rather transferred into her work, which connects to episode Pink of how her addiction leads to her end. The episode is mostly just more insight into the dynamic between Ava and Nazan, as we get Ava's background as well. Apparently she was a refugee orphan, and the old lady in the last episode is actually Ava's old nanny from when she was young, who helped her escape to the US. Nazan decides to be a sneaky lady and uses the old lady as leverage to make Ava an informant, pretty much confirming that she is a mole mentioned in episode Blue, which hey, I called. As far as for the rest of Team Felonies, we get more context about the abuse faced in Bob and Judy's relationship, with Stan clearly having feelings, making episode Pink make more sense. We also are informed that Stan and Leo were cellmates, reaffirming that relationship, and that to the general public, the person named Ray Vernon is thought to be murked, but we all know that is not true. Episode 5. Green. We cut back to 7 years before the heist, chronologically episode 2, with us seeing Ray's great escape back in prison. We see Stan and Judy are seemingly good friends, with them working on a prison SIM card scheme, and Stan being the inside man. It's confirmation of what we learned earlier with Stan and Ray being roommates, and it seems to show more of their friendship than any other episode up until this point. Ray is seen to have early stages of Parkinson's, which explains the shaky movements in Pink episode. Again, I called it. This may have been viewed as a wake-up call for him losing time, as he plans a prison escape almost immediately after. Stan tries to join as well, as he sees that his lady friend Judy is getting close to Bob, as this was before they officially got together, but ultimately he stays back to protect Ray in the most vital moment of the plan. Luckily, he only has 6 months left on his sentence. Ray gets cover from Ava, then immediately visits his grown daughter Hannah, where we see that she holds hostility from his volunteer distance from her. After seeing her go back to work, shaking hands with his former partner turned enemy in Graham, now Roger Silas, it kicks off his planning for the heist of SLS. Ray fakes his passing, now officially going by the name Leo Papp. Episode 6. Red. Taking place directly after the heist, chronologically episode 7, the crew is sparsely coming back to the hideout with no one trusting the other, as all let's know for sure is that they don't have the bonds, which was their primary goal for making the heist. RJ, the car guy who had zero presence in the whole show, just never comes back, along with Bob the Brute. So Stan questions Judy about them, as apparently she knows their whereabouts. Ava eventually comes back in the morning with the bond, stating that Bob was murked, but we already know it's false, as he gets murked later on according to episode Pink. High spirits for having the bonds don't last after they realize that they have mostly fake bonds with only a few real ones. Nazan seemingly got a heads up and was around the scene of the crime, which matches the end of episode Blue. Roger is in an uproar from his vault being broken into, hiring his men to track the group, just for them to promptly murk them. And we again are introduced to characters that seemingly have a big connection to someone on the heist team, yet they are murked almost immediately as soon as we meet them. We then end the episode with something so crazy being left inside of Roger's personal safe that it incriminates him on the spot by Nazan and the rest of the police. Episode 7. Yellow. Going back 6 weeks before the heist, chronologically the 3rd episode, Hannah is seen breaking into another vault, using skills I could only assume were from Roger and her father, to show how competitor vaults are garbage and boost the reputation of SLS. This episode mostly plays as this roundup type episode as we assemble the team eventually used for the SLS vault heist. Ava is already close with Leo, RJ works for Leo in his auto repair shop, Leo is cellmates with Stan, Stan was close to Judy, and Bob just wanted to be included. We get an explanation of the dangers of the triplets, the same rich people that Roger is trying to convince to keep their bonds within his company's vaults. They all come from old money, with access to bonds that are so old that they don't have to be registered and can be cashed by anyone, which is something I have been wondering about since the beginning, so it's nice to know. We see the tech dude Andrew, who we later see get murked by Roger's hitman in episode Blue. We see he was fired for messing with company systems, but it was really Hannah who framed him. She did it not only to advance her career as she was shown to be pregnant, but she also had been in contact with her father at the time. Back with the team itself, we see them pull off the Diamond Way heist alluded to back in episode Pink. It involves the robbery of a bunch of jewels to fund the SLS heist, with Bob getting his hand broken after going haywire on the mission. Episode 8. White. It's a stronger chance that the episode chosen last is the actual heist itself. Its content is more or less just wrapping up any loose ends, with us actually seeing how this big heist, alluded to all season, actually went down. Everything goes smoothly at first, taking out the guards and getting through the rest of his tech measures. The only real obstacle that went wrong is the messing up of the explosions, as Judy was rushed by RJ and the rest of the team. The police are around the corner as they got a heads up from Ava, which is legitimate proof of her being the rat, although her plan was to throw the police off their tails. Bob isn't with the funny business though, and when he sees the cop, he tries to leave early with Judy and all the money taken so far. His plan was to dip and leave everyone else to take the fall. RJ tries to stop Bob when he sees him, but when he's about to shoot, Judy murks RJ in his defense, which confirms why we don't see RJ in any episodes chronologically after this. Stan catches the couple from trying to leave without them and gets chased by Bob. Judy, realizing who her priorities lie with more, choked Bob out until he went unconscious, which explains his lack of voice in episode Pink and why Ava thought he was murked in episode Red, as she saw his seemingly lifeless body while leaving in the getaway van. Leo is left to finish the job, as for him, it was never about getting the money, but getting justice against the man that ruined his life. Before he goes, he has a talk with his daughter, who comes out of nowhere, who explains that she was responsible for the fake bonds being seen in episode Red, and that she had to make a deal with the triplets because that was the only way she could protect her father and the rest of his team. This also makes sense of how she was able to afford such a nice place seen in episode Pink. They have a nice heart-to-heart before Leo ends it all as it started, by leaving the purple necklace that Roger and him had stolen all those years ago in their last heist together. The necklace in which Roger had let Leo's wife pass in order to escape freely with. This is the incriminating piece we see at the end of Red and why Roger is in jail in episode Pink. I think I chose the wrong order. Kaleidoscope was clearly a project that when being made, it knew that it wanted to have this gimmick and that they wanted to bring this experience to the viewer, but it's almost like they underrated how hard it took to actually make this gimmick work within the context of the story. This leads to a piece that, while still enjoyable, it's highly flawed in execution. They repeat character beats in an effort to try to solidify initial impressions, as of course, they don't know which episode people will pick first. And the dialogue gets unnaturally vague at times, which is how you can almost guarantee that they're setting up for something viewed in another episode. Not gonna lie, I feel like it's almost not even worth watching this show in any other order than chronologically, especially if you're not extremely tapped in and focused into the show, because you can very easily lose track to any references to earlier episodes. To put it lightly, the pros just don't outweigh the cons. For every reveal that gives you an aha moment because you finally understand the importance of something, you can end up getting hit with a huge spoiler earlier on of who survives and who passes away, and it kind of ruins the rest of the show moving forward. Seeing episode Pink as my third episode definitely tainted my experience, as I pretty much just met everyone right before, and now half of them are gone by the time the episode ends. So how am I supposed to get attached to them when I do eventually see these prequel episodes if I know how their fate ends? I think they could have started to benefit at least making the first and last episode the definitive first and last episodes, or reforming the show completely so that we're just following different aspects of the same heist throughout the show instead of over the span of 25 years. I know I did spoil a lot of things and I'm kind of getting on this show heavy right now, but it's a pretty solid if you have an extra couple hours to spare. I of course didn't reveal all the twists, just make sure that if you do watch it in chronological order. But if for some reason you want to see some out of the order fun just for your own personal liking, my suggestion is to either move episode Violet somewhere in the middle or move episode White to like the last episode or something. Kaleidoscope isn't a grand slam like many were to have hoped, but it is entertaining and I hope this is the start of more engaging Netflix projects to come. If you guys made it this far, I would ask if you guys please like and subscribe to the channel. It only takes 2 seconds, but it would mean the world to me. Peace.